Hello everyone and welcome back. This is Veteran Mountain Man, and today I want to talk to you about something that many people declare is the root of all evil, and that's money. Well, what is money, realistically? What does it mean? Why do we use it? And is it really evil? Well, one of the things we got to look at when we're looking at money is look at why we use money. And to look at why we use money, we actually first need to really understand what money is. Is money that piece of paper that you hold in your hand that is printed with a type of worth that may or may not have the picture of somebody famous on there, such as a leader or a politician or an activist or a person of note? Or is the money something else? Well, realistically, that piece of paper is nothing more than a marker. That's all it really is. What the money actually represents, especially today in modern currency, is an amount of labor you've already performed. Now, that labor is something that you performed either through work, or it's money that you received because somebody shared it with you, or it could be money that somebody paid you specifically for a good or service you did. Or if you're on the social benefits programs, it's money that the government gave you that it took from somebody else. So what does that really make that money? Well, it makes that money work somebody has done, is what it really is. It is work somebody has done. That means that person got up, did a certain amount of labor, and was given a certain amount of notes showing that labor had been done, and then turns around and can use those notes to exchange it for other things. So the question then becomes, well, why do we need this? And the answers are not as simple as you'd think. There's actually two parts to the answer. The first is very, very simple. And it is, if we were a true, straight barter economy, where you exchanged one raw good for another raw good for your life, it would take you hours of work just to acquire what it is you wanted. And I'll give you an example. All of you have seen television shows where the person is trying to trade one thing for another, and they end up having to trade one thing for another thing for another thing for another thing to finally get what they want. They have to go through this chain of trades. That is true barter economies. That is what happens in its extreme form, but it's what happens because it's highly unlikely that in a barter society you would go to the market with your chickens that you raised in your backyard and you'd go to trade them for, say, tomatoes, that the tomato vendor would want chickens for tomatoes because the person growing tomatoes might also have chickens. Or the person growing tomatoes might have just traded another person for chickens and now doesn't want chickens but wants turnips because they can only eat so much chicken. And so in a barter society, you spend a lot of time negotiating out your actual transactions. Money or currency smooths that, in that you go to the tomato vendor and he says, I want 79 cents for my tomatoes. And you can say, well, I have this $5 bill and I would like several tomatoes. And so you exchange that $5 bill for those tomatoes and both of you are happy, instead of you having to go find whatever that tomato vendor wanted in order to make the trade. Now, the second thing that currency does is it gives you the ability to store worth. Because things like raw agricultural products are very difficult to store. But what you can do with a currency-based economy is you can raise a bunch of chickens, slaughter them all at once, and sell them to people all over the world, and then accept that currency, and you can spend that currency when you need to. You don't have to worry about keeping those chickens alive to trade them only when you need something. So it allows us to streamline and simplify and create economies of scales for our production. Now, this also led to industrialization and many other things. So realistically, money is not a root of evil. It's actually the root of our advancement as a culture. And you can see this because all over the world, currency has been used, even when philosophies wildly differ. I mean, the yen has been around for centuries upon centuries. It wasn't the Europeans that introduced money to feudal Japan. Feudal Japan already had money. Pre-industrial China had money. Even many of the aboriginal cultures, the American Indians, had forms of barter that already existed, primarily arrow points and knives, as well as furs, but other things as well. And when horses and wool blankets were introduced and were found to be far superior to furs and to walking, they became forms of barter, and quite expensive forms of barter. And so you would compare the worth of something to the worth of a blanket or a horse. Well, that's it for today. I want to thank you all for joining me, and I'm glad that I got a chance to discuss with you why money in and of itself exists, and why it's not really the root of all evil. Don't forget, if you like what I'm doing here, to go ahead and like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Follow and upvote me if you're on VidMe. Don't forget, if you leave a comment, I will read it and respond if I feel there's something worth responding to in it. I do read every comment that comes through. Also, don't forget, you can contact me at minds.com/veteran mountain man if you'd like to interact with me in some sort of public debate or discourse, or if you want to present some ideas. Also, don't forget to come on over to patreon.com/veteran mountain man. The link's below. If you become a patron, you get access to paid membership content, which only those who are patrons at Patreon get access to. So thank you all again, and have yourselves a wonderful day.